The Ballinger Eminent Persons Lecture Series at Mott Community College brings prominent individuals to our community to lecture on topics of social, cultural, economic, scientific, and historical significance. It is named in honor of William S. Ballinger Sr. Mr. Ballinger believed strongly in the value of education and of having a resource like Mott Community College available to all. His endowed gift to the college is what makes the Ballinger Eminent Persons Lecture Series possible. The series was created to enhance educational opportunities for Mott Community College students, as well as create an opportunity for public discussion of issues facing the greater Flint and Genesee County community. Since its inception in 1955, speakers have included national and international thought leaders and influencers such as rocket scientist Wernher von Braun, journalist Alistair Cook, Peter Jennings, Leslie Stahl, and John Quinones. Art critic Stanley Kaufman, talk show host Geraldo Rivera, writers including Alex Haley and William Buckley, author Stephanie Land, American geographer Jared Diamond, humorist Art Buchwald, activists such as Julian Bond, Jesse Jackson, Morris Dees, and Cesar Chavez. Activist and actor Harry Belafonte. Director Spike Lee. Actress Jennifer Lewis. Actor Ernie Hudson. Film producer Kathleen Glenn. Businessman and Shark Tank star Damon John. Politicians including former Governor John Engler, former Prime Minister of Poland Lech Walesa, and the former Prime Minister of Great Britain Harold Wilson. Musicians such as Dizzy Gillespie, Stan Kenton, Ramsey Lewis, and Patti Smith. Poet Allen Ginsberg. Mental health advocate and actor Sean Astin. Former Surgeon General Dr. David Satcher. And famed anthropologist Margaret Mead. This tradition of excellence continues with today's presentation, and each of you is a part of this ongoing tradition. The Ballinger Eminent Persons Lecture Series at Mott Community College brings prominent individuals to our community to lecture on topics of social, cultural, economic, scientific, and historical significance. It is named in honor of William S. Ballinger Sr. Mr. Ballinger believed strongly in the value of education and of having a resource like Mott Community College available to all. His endowed gift to the college is what makes the Ballinger Eminent Persons Lecture Series possible. The series was created to enhance educational opportunities for Mott Community College students, as well as create an opportunity for public discussion of issues facing the greater Flint and Genesee County community. Since its inception in 1955, speakers have included national and international thought leaders and influencers such as rocket scientist Wernher von Braun, journalist Alistair Cook, Peter Jennings, Leslie Stahl, and John Quinones. Art critic Stanley Kaufman, talk show host Geraldo Rivera, writers including Alex Haley and William Buckley, author Stephanie Land, American geographer Jared Diamond, humorist Art Buchwald, activists such as Julian Bond, Jesse Jackson, Morris Dees, and Cesar Chavez. Activist and actor Harry Belafonte. Director Spike Lee. Actress Jennifer Lewis. Actor Ernie Hudson. Film producer Kathleen Glenn. Businessman and Shark Tank star Damon John. Politicians including former Governor John Engler, former Prime Minister of Poland Lech Walesa, and the former Prime Minister of Great Britain Harold Wilson. Musicians such as Dizzy Gillespie, Stan Kenton, Ramsey Lewis, and Patti Smith. Poet Allen Ginsberg. Mental health advocate and actor Sean Astin. Former Surgeon General Dr. David Satcher. And famed anthropologist Margaret Mead. This tradition of excellence continues with today's presentation, and each of you is a part of this ongoing tradition. The Ballinger Eminent Persons Lecture Series at Mott Community College brings prominent individuals to our community to lecture on topics of social, cultural, economic, scientific, and historical significance. It is named in honor of William S. Ballinger Sr. Mr. Ballinger believed strongly in the value of education and of having a resource like Mott Community College available to all. His endowed gift to the college is what makes the Ballinger Eminent Persons Lecture Series possible. The series was created to enhance educational opportunities for Mott Community College students, as well as create an opportunity for public discussion of issues facing the greater Flint and Genesee County community. Since its inception in 1955, speakers have included national and international thought leaders and influencers such as rocket scientist Wernher von Braun, journalist Alistair Cook, Peter Jennings, Leslie Stahl, and John Quinones. Art critic Stanley Kaufman, talk show host Geraldo Rivera, Writers including Alex Haley and William Buckley. Author Stephanie Land. American geographer Jared Diamond. Humorist Art Buchwald. Activists such as Julian Bond, Jesse Jackson, Morris Dees, and Cesar Chavez. Activist and actor Harry Belafonte. Director Spike Lee. Actress Jennifer Lewis. Actor Ernie Hudson. Film producer Kathleen Glenn. Businessman and Shark Tank star Damon John. Politicians including former Governor John Engler, former Prime Minister of Poland Lech Walesa, and the former Prime Minister of Great Britain Harold Wilson. Musicians such as Dizzy Gillespie, Stan Kenton, Ramsey Lewis, and Patti Smith. Poet Allen Ginsberg. Mental health advocate and actor Sean Astin. Former Surgeon General Dr. David Satcher. And famed anthropologist Margaret Mead. This tradition of excellence continues with today's presentation, and each of you is a part of this ongoing tradition.
Good evening, everybody. Come on in, sit down. We're about to start the program. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm Jim Kurtzner. I'm going to be the moderator of this. And what I want you to know right now is this is a town hall, which means it's going to be a freewheeling discussion night. We have 4 people on the stage who will generate a lot of the conversation. But from you, I want to hear your questions and I want to hear your comments. Please keep them brief. I control the mic. I got my tennies on, so raise your hand and I will come to you throughout the night. Remember the old Phil Donahue show? That's what we're going to do tonight. And for those of you old enough, you may remember when he brought his show and did it over at the Whiting to do the movie with Michael Moore, Roger and Me. That goes back a number of years. That shows you how old I am. But anyway, we're going to get started shortly. Come on in, take a seat, and we'll get started shortly. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. It's Friday Eve. I mean, I understand we have a great conversation that's coming forth this evening, but, let's good evening, everyone. Put a little perk to it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for being here today. We want to welcome you to the Ballinger Fieldhouse on behalf of the Mott Board of Trustees. Just want to say thank you for coming out. Oftentimes, as a Flint resident, longtime Flint resident, community activist, and many other things, one of the most important things is to make sure that community is informed. This conversation that we're going to have here, there are no sides, but what there is hopefully clarity for many of you to give you a better understanding of what's going on as it relates to the mega sites, and we're going to have that conversation tonight. Prepare yourself for your questions if you want to write them down so that you don't forget them, because we will have time for dialogue, and we want to make sure that your voice is a part of the conversation that's going forth this evening. I also want to say that as it relates to the purpose, thank you all for being here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for all that you do, seen and unseen. You don't have to be here this evening to hear what's happening with the mega site or how you can be involved, but you're here, and for that we're truly appreciative. Are there any elected officials in the room? If so, could you just stand for a moment so we may acknowledge you? I saw one more. Thank you. Thank you so very much for being here, and thank you for your service. At this time, I would like to introduce and welcome Bill Ballinger to the podium, and he will come in his own way. Thank you again.
Thank you, Kenyatta. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you've seen from the rolling montage as you entered this field house, this lecture series has been going on for a long time, nearly 3/4 of a century. It is the longest continuously running such series in the entire state of Michigan, and it has been easily the best, although maybe I'm a little biased. The honor roll of speakers, as you've seen, has been prodigious and outstanding. But great as these men and women have been, this year we decided to do something different. We decided to hold a town hall style public forum on a major domestic issue of our times. This issue is important not just to Genesee County, and particularly to one of our townships, Mundy Township, but to Michigan as a whole and the nation as well. It's the question of whether a state government, any state government, should use taxpayer dollars to fund economic development, to create jobs by offering it to private corporations and the local authorities with whom they ally. The idea is to lure these private businesses to locate in Michigan instead of some other state and create jobs here for the benefit of our population. But some ask why these businesses cannot decide to come here on their own without being offered inducements and tax breaks and free land. That's what we'll be discussing tonight. And at this point, I want to turn things over to our moderator, Jim Kurtzner, who will guide us through our conversation. Jim Kurtzner is a veteran TV news investigative reporter here in Flint, in mid-Michigan, and in Detroit with 42 years experience. Add on another 10 years at the start of his career in other states for a total of 52 years in TV journalism. Jim has won 8 Emmys and many other awards. He's been inducted into the National Television Arts and Sciences Silver Circle, which is an honor bestowed only on those with a minimum of 25 outstanding years in journalism. Jim has covered the auto industry, the Flint water crisis, the plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and the Oxford school shooting. He's covered politics, corruption, the Buell school shooting in Mount Morris Township back in 2000, and all the major news stories in Michigan since 1983. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Flint welcome to Jim Kurtzner.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everybody. This is not about me tonight. I appreciate that. This is about you. It's about our panel, and it's about the issues. Let's meet our panel. Let's start off with Congressman Dan Kildee. Please tell us your position on this and who you represent right now.
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting all of us to participate, and thanks to all of you for being here. I'm here representing simply a perspective, an historical perspective. I'm not here representing either of the organizations that I'm associated with. I happen to be the president and CEO of the Community Foundation of Greater Flint and the Robert and Marjorie Griffin Chair of American Government at Central Michigan University, a position once held by Bill Ballinger, by the way. So my view is, as a person long associated with our community, is really focused on economic development in this region. I believe that we can balance the need to aggressively go after the jobs of the 21st century with the need to protect community interests. And to characterize my position in short form, it's this: we cannot take ourselves out of the game. The biggest need in our community, in this region, for decades, has been the loss of jobs, the loss of manufacturing jobs. And you might be interested to find that, in theory, I might find some common cause, in the sense that if it were the case that we were not competing with other places that offer substantial incentives to locate jobs in their communities, I could understand more fully the argument that we shouldn't do it. But when we have lost so much of our manufacturing, and we're in an environment where that competition is real and has real-life consequences for our kids, who may or may not have a choice to continue to live in this community but may have to go elsewhere to find a decent living, I don't think we can afford to unilaterally disarm ourselves in an economic struggle that is really important to generations to come in our community. That's the position that I hold.
Thank you, Dan. More to come. It's nice to see we've intertwined. We have two people on each side of this issue. Next, we have James Holman. James, introduce yourself to the crowd, please.
Thank you, and I'm glad that we are going to have lots to talk about, because I've got a great idea that I think you're going to like. But for my position, I mean, Bill already talked about where I stand on this, but let me try and say it a different way. Most businesses pay for their own land. Most businesses pay taxes. They don't receive taxpayer money from other businesses, or from other businesses, other taxpayers. And this is the normal order of things, and the normal order of things works. The places that are doing the best are the ones that get the basics right. And there's a broad cross-ideological coalition of people who want us to compete over the things that matter, not over who can write the biggest checks to the biggest businesses. The basics matter, and let's get back to them.
Thank you very much. We also have with us State Senator John Cherry II, whose district happens to represent Mundy Township. Senator, thanks for being with us tonight. Your position is what?
Thank you, Jim, and I also want to thank Bill and Kenyatta for inviting me here, and all of you for coming. Happy to be on this panel. Who I represent the 27th State Senate District, which encompasses most of Genesee County, 260,000 people. The view that I have on the issue tonight really is based on, I think, what is not only my personal experience, but the experience of many people within Genesee County. I was born in 1985, and at that time, we had 70,000 people employed by General Motors, and today we have 8,000, and that's had tremendous effects on the opportunities for people that I graduated with, who 90% of them no longer live in this community. It's not because they didn't love this community or want to stay here, it's because they had to leave it in order to find opportunity. And so really what I'm interested in is finding ways to make sure that children like my children, I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, have the opportunity to stay in the community that they grow up in and have a career and stay here and have prosperity. And that's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
Senator, thank you very much. Last but not least, Joanne Mundy, you also live in Mundy Township, is that correct? And your position tonight is what?
Thank you. My name is Joanne Mundy, and I am a current resident of Mundy Township. I chose to move to Mundy Township about 3 years ago, looking for a nice blend of agricultural, rural, and urban experience. I'm here to represent the residents of Mundy Township, those who feel their voices have not been heard and who have been forgotten. Since late 2022, our grassroots group of individuals has spent our time learning about megasite developments. They typically include EV battery plants, semiconductor manufacturing plants, even pharmaceutical or aerospace industries. What is being targeted for Mundy Township? No one knows. What do we know? The residents of Mundy Township believe their concerns are being ignored. In April of 2024, the township's consultant did a community-wide survey. The two top-ranking answers to what residents liked about Mundy Township is that it is a safe environment. 79% of the residents felt that way. It has open and natural spaces. 67% felt that way. Our own grassroots group did a survey itself in October. Over 80% cited their concerns over environmental quality as well as health concerns. Just under 75% indicated that the current location of this proposed megasite is in the worst possible location. However, over and over again, we are hearing about how the megasite is the best site in America. The survey indicates otherwise. The state wants to impose this land grab under the guise of job creation, except the state didn't ask the community or maybe study the survey results. In the summer of 2022, township supervisors and managers and landowners were convinced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. These were rescinded in 2024. However, it has left the community divided. It has left the community wondering why they weren't represented. The current progress of cutting down trees, demolishing homes, has been a mockery to the residents who have spent their lives building equity in their homes and in their farmland. Neighbors and farmers have been pitted against one another, but it doesn't matter to the state. It's just a ledger entry. Decades of corruption in the big agricultural business has resulted in creating a farming environment where the younger generation doesn't want to attack. Why wouldn't a farmer want to sell out when offered unimaginable prices for their property, since they've been operating in razor-thin profit margins for decades? That doesn't matter to the state either. It's just a ledger entry. We have a government full of people who want to solve a problem they have created. The Mundy Township residents are smart enough to know what is good for them, and it isn't a megasite.
Very good. Thank you very much. I don't want to cut anybody off tonight. Everybody has strong opinions. We want to hear them. I will repeat, please keep it brief. Now, I was asked yesterday by a news person, what is it all about? What's the gold nugget, which is news talk? My answer, this is the first comprehensive community discussion of this project that now sits at a standstill. What will happen next? This has been in the news long before tonight. This has been examined by a Michigan Legislative Oversight Committee. I put together this video that I posted on social media over the weekend. Please watch it tonight, and as you do, I ask you to think about the issues as we move forward tonight. Take a look.
Breaking news. The Advanced Manufacturing District, aiming to bring thousands of jobs to Genesee County, hits a major roadblock.
A big business bailing on building in Genesee County's so-called Mundy Township mega site. It would have created thousands of jobs.
The company SanDisk has informed local leaders it will not be building a facility at what is known as the mega site in Mundy Township.
According to lawmakers, it would have been the largest private investment in the history of Michigan.
And this was your project?
Yeah, we've been working on it for a little bit of time.
Your reaction?
It's a hard day today.
A massive economic promise has collapsed here in Mundy Township.
We've tore down 200 houses, all for no reason, no buyer, nothing's going in there. So I have to ask you, at what point in time is it going to be too much? It's $269 million of my money, your money, his money, her money, his money, residents' money. That's the money that was used for this project. And the sad part about it is there's no project.
In Lansing, lawmakers were told SanDisk was free to go.
Was there ever a signed contract that from SanDisk, knowing that they were going to build there before this money was invested?
We personally never signed any contract with SanDisk. The LOI that SanDisk signed, it was not a legally binding document.
At that same hearing on August 27th, Mundy Township megasite was called a game changer that had been in the works for years.
In the summer of 2022, representatives from the company first came to visit us in the site. We detailed the amazing benefits about doing business in our community and what the site offered. By the end of 2024, it was our understanding that if the company obtained federal incentives, Mundy Township and the AMD would be the next location of their facility. And that would mean over 20 years, they would invest $63 billion. They would create 9,400 permanent jobs. It would be an absolute game changer for Genesee County and the state of Michigan.
This project easily would have been the largest investment opportunity in Michigan's history.
The state investment numbers on just this one project also add up enough to get this reaction from a Democratic member of the Oversight Committee.
The totality of that, for people wondering, is $40 billion. That's approximately half of a state budget for a year.
In the years working on this project, NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, were signed to keep the business confidential.
I've held dozens of stakeholder meetings with residents and business leaders and educators and concerned citizens, all about this site. Now, as a private nonprofit, we've signed NDAs. Many times this is required given the highly competitive nature of business. Companies will not discuss opportunities with us unless we agree not to disclose what they tell us.
On August 20th, the same Oversight Committee asked the Mundy Township manager about NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. He signed one.
I guess what I'm asking is, should the MEDC be able to withhold information like this relating to the area that you serve by requiring NDAs?
It's certainly a weighted subject, right? And I'm, as I mentioned in my comments, completely cognizant, not obtuse to the fact that the aura of public officials agreeing to non-disclosure is a very negative one. To answer your question directly, in a perfect world, do I wish that was not necessary? Absolutely.
Township manager also told the committee tax abatements or no taxes from SanDisk, no problem. In their deal, they would still make hefty annual payments.
And I know it was reported SanDisk was willing to make an annual payment in lieu of taxes to Mundy Township in the realm of $10 million annually, with an escalator thereafter over the course of those 50 years. And just by way of comparison, as I mentioned in my comments, our general fund operating budget is $8 million.
On August 27th, the head of the MEDC said their mission was simple and necessary, and the financial decisions are up to the legislature.
Working with local partners like the Flint Genesee Economic Alliance is to do the best possible thing we can to make Michigan as attractive for inbound investment. The decision ultimately would have been the legislators.
State lawmakers have recently introduced legislation to eliminate the MEDC. That question came up on August 27th.
It's not the private company's final decision whether or not they get a corporate handout, taxpayer-funded assistance. It's on us. And to a certain extent, it is not your final decision either. We created you. And to that extent, should we have created you?
I would say ultimately that is for the legislature. I strongly believe that it is in the best interest of Michiganders to have a state economic development organization that has and executes a state economic development strategy.
So what I think that government would be wise to do, would be prudent to do, is to get out of the business of trying to interpret what is and what is not the best economic decisions for the state of Michigan, and let our communities, let our state, and let our people do what they do best, and that's provide for themselves and their family and make the decisions that they see fit, and not give it over to a quasi-public-private entity like the MEDC working in tandem with big corporations around America to try to tell us what's best for us.
This is Morris Elementary School. It's still open and holding classes every day. It's inside the mega site, and there were confidential private talks earlier to buy it and tear it down. Those private talks were discovered in documents residents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act.
It's a disgrace.
Anger and frustration as a Swartz Creek parent reveals there were secret meetings and plans to sell Morris Elementary School with 3 school board members months before anyone told the rest of the board or the public. After that revelation, a 6-hour meeting, and months of controversy, the Swartz Creek School Board turned down a $40 million offer to buy the Flint and Genesee Economic Alliance to buy Morris Elementary School. After rejecting the offer to sell Morris Elementary School for $40 million, the board voted to pursue an internal investigation and said they would consider a counteroffer from the Flint and Genesee Economic Alliance.
Tell me your first and last name.
My name is Cindy Nolf.
And you live out here?
Yes, I do. I live about 1.5 miles from the site. This is the 2 square mile site.
We're right here.
Yes, we are.
And you're talking about all of these homes surrounding this site, right?
Yes.
Here, right here, and right here.
Right.
You said there are 7 subdivisions, 1,200 homes.
Yes, sir, within a 1/2 mile perimeter of the site.
And we're in one of those. We're off Hill Road. We can show there are houses that go back pretty far and deep. And then as we come back out here to Hill Road, that's the mega site right across the road.
Yes, it is. How is it going to affect us on this side of the street? We're directly across the street from it. And we've seen with the different manufacturing places in the city of Flint, what happens to the neighborhoods around here.
What needs to happen from here?
Well, it's pretty much inevitable that something's going to go there.
They want jobs, permanent jobs, construction jobs. What's your reaction to all of that?
Well, we're not against having jobs, but we just don't want it in the middle of our neighborhood.
Don Ludwig.
And what did you have going out here with the camera?
Probably back in October or so, they came over, they dropped off a camera. There was a house here, and then within, I don't know, 2 or 3 days later, they moved it to the backyard. And the problem I had with it being in the backyard, because that's my daughter's bedroom window.
Being harassed by the cameras again.
So I think it was just intimidation.
Of you?
Yes.
Because of your testimony?
Yeah.
I am against it, and I'm against the taxpayers having to pay for it, if that makes sense.
That and being the vocal one of Mundy Township, you know, I'm the most outspoken.
Still taping us. Hello.
And you've seen no other cameras any other place out here?
Nope. The only other one I've seen is over there by their construction trailer that's closer to Elms, that's inside their fenced-in yard where they keep their bulldozers and their equipment.
Okay.
So they moved it from there to over here.
Now, I did look into this before I got here.
Okay.
I was sent a statement, and this is statements attributed to Tyler Rossmessler.
Yep.
Safety and security are our top priorities. We routinely install temporary cameras and motion sensor lights to protect construction crews, to promote safety and visibility at the site, and to prevent theft or accidents. The cameras are moved when demolition of Maple Avenue was completed.
Yeah. I can understand that statement, but at that point in time, it was here 10 days prior of any equipment showing up to the home or anything. They put up an orange barricade, 3-foot fence around my property. So I think it was more, probably they're going to use that as an excuse over the intimidation factor.
Now, I asked how many cameras do they have in total out there, and how many times have they set up one of those remote cameras on a single house demolition? I got no answer. I asked twice. So, what'd you think of the video? What do you think of the issues we've examined and put out there so far? Anybody want to comment from the floor? I'm coming to you. And people on the platform, I'm coming to you next. Everybody gets a say tonight. I got it.
Okay. My name's Dan Curran, and I'm a Flint resident, and I've seen the boom and bust of Flint and how the bust has hurt our community particularly. And I'm thinking of my middle schooler, my son, who wants to be a robotics engineer. He wants to go to Kettering. He wants to have a good career in a high-tech industry. And I would love for him to be able to do that here and not have to go out of county or out of state to have an advanced career, especially if it's in an advanced industry like the microchip industry.
So you want to see this come in?
I do want to see it come in. And I'd also like to say that I support the function of government to make investments that are out of reach of individuals and will have far-reaching benefits for our entire community.
Thank you very much. This very point came up earlier this afternoon when I was in with a session of students here at Mott with the congressman and senator, and the topic was, where do our young kids go? Where do our kids go? Do they stick around here, and do they have a viable economic lifestyle, or do they have to leave this area? How many have kids? How many have adult kids now? Let me see your hand, adult kids. Okay? Keep your hand up if your adult kids are still around here or if they've had to leave the area. Okay. Okay. On the platform, comments about the video?
Sure, I got one because I think I talked about what was normal and what should be normal. There's a lot of things that are normal these days that aren't right. Our elected officials are negotiating in private with private companies over how much money that they are going to give them, and you can't be told what they're negotiating over, who they're negotiating with, or what they're doing. And if this deal would have happened and they would have gotten federal CHIPS money, you can't even be told what's in the contracts. That is confidential information. Giving billions of dollars to private companies is not, of taxpayer money, of public money, is now confidential information, and that's not right. Non-disclosure agreements that our lawmakers are signing, we didn't do this 20 years ago. We shouldn't be doing it right now. There's been bills introduced in Michigan and elsewhere to change that as a basic rule. That's some basic public transparency that we should have over these deals. But more important than that is that we shouldn't be trying to favor some industries over others. We shouldn't be trying to select winners and losers. It's just not what matters. And if you look at the places that are growing in Michigan and around the country, they're not the places that are writing the biggest checks to the biggest businesses. They're the places that are doing the basics right. And that's what should be the law in Michigan. That should be the policy, because as one Supreme Court justice here in Michigan said, the government can have no favorites. Its job is to protect the industry of all and to give all the benefits of equal laws. We need to care about equality for businesses a little bit more these days.
Dan.
Well, first of all, thanks for the comment. And again, let me just start by saying this. One of the things we've got to get past here in this room, in the state of Michigan, and in the place that I used to work in Washington, by the way, I'm glad I'm not there, is to get away from this binary approach to every question, that there's good on one side and evil on the other, that it's black and white, red and green, or blue and red, as we see in Washington, and realize there are some complicated questions that we need to answer here, and we need to figure out a way to problem solve this. I don't agree with every step of the process, for sure. When I was a member of Congress, I did not sign a non-disclosure agreement. That meant I didn't know as much about what was happening, but I knew the broad stroke. But the real question is, and I appreciate the perspective that other communities are doing better competing for jobs because they're getting the basics right. Let's be clear. We don't have the tax base required to get the basics right here. We do not have the tax base required to provide the essential public services necessary in order to compete. We got a bit of a chicken and egg problem here. What do we need in order to grow the basics, to grow our tax base in order to provide high quality public services to everybody in the region? We need more jobs in this area. Now, as to the point about government support for industrial development, I understand the philosophical argument. I get it. Except that this is what you call an industrial policy. And we are competing not just with other states, but with other nations who have really robust industrial policy. And I know there's an ideological approach that says everybody stands down and nobody provides any incentives, and we just all meditate in hopes of jobs showing up. But that doesn't work. It doesn't work for anybody. Just be clear, the notion that the government has a stake in growing jobs is not some new idea that just evolved, and it's not a left or right idea. President Donald Trump, a person with whom I have had some differences over the years, believes and supports robust incentives to reshore American manufacturing jobs. So did Joe Biden, so did George W. Bush, so did Barack Obama. There are differences as to approach for sure, but until we come to a point where communities can compete on an even playing field, meaning we have the essential elements of civil society available, it's very difficult for me to say that our community should stand down while everybody else does everything they can do to draw the jobs that are going to be created in their communities. That to me is a prescription for continuing down this path that we've been on for a long, long time. I get it. And one last point. We got to do it right. People have to hold their officials accountable. That decision about the Board of Education, there are elected Board of Education members that you need to hold accountable for the decisions they make, for sure. But they, at this moment, if they are in that position, they speak as the elected officials representing the community. You may make a decision that you want different elected officials representing the community. I get that. But at the end of it all, we need jobs in our community. The way to attract them is being ready for the jobs that are being developed. And that's why a site such as this, it comes down to two questions. Should we have an industrial policy that provides incentives to bring jobs from across the globe or across the country to our community, to a community like ours? That's one question. And then the more difficult and sensitive question, which I completely get, is that if you happen to be in the space, in the area most affected, it's really difficult to accept. But I am a little frustrated as a kid who grew up in Flint that for a long time, the entire region in every township of Genesee County benefited greatly by the fact that the people in the city of Flint hosted the manufacturing base here. And it was perfectly fine. Folks who say they're not against the jobs, I get that. What they are against is the jobs being located in proximity to where they are. And the problem is the jobs do have to land someplace. I get it that we have to have an honest debate about where they should be. But if we can somehow believe that we can get the jobs without the jobs landing in a particular spot at a particular place, then we're just kind of talking.
Hello? There we go. That is the balancing act. Let me see a quick show of hands, and I'll come and get your questions and comments. How many believe we do need jobs in Flint and Genesee County? We've all seen the decline, right? The numbers that we heard earlier today, General Motors used to employ 75,000 people. Flint had the second highest wage scale in the country back in the day. Now how many GM jobs do we have? 8,000 in Genesee County? So all those jobs went bye-bye, and so did the economic benefits. Now, the balancing act is, okay, we're going to bring jobs in, but where? Not in my backyard. There are all kinds of implications, environmental and otherwise. Joanne, you wanted to make a point?
I did. Regarding engineering jobs, high-tech jobs, just as a preface, I'm an engineer who's been practicing over 40 years. I had twin daughters attend Kettering who graduated in 2016. They had one heck of a time finding a job in 2016 due to the influx of the globalization of engineering jobs, meaning they were always undercut by someone who was not from the area willing to take a pay lower than what they wanted. I have 2 adult children living at home who are working, one in Metro Detroit and one in Oakland County. Opportunity is where you go look for it. I've had a job since I was 8 years old. Never had I had the government tell me where I should work, where I should find a job, where a job is going to be best for me. We're not against jobs. What we are against is the fact that no one has asked the residents prior to this becoming a problem as to where jobs could be benefited from. There are countless of places within an urban development where there are empty manufacturing plants still standing, empty parking lots, but no one wants to take the initiative to develop a brown site. Everyone wants to ruin farmland, and once you ruin that farmland, you will never, never restore that. Now, why does it have to be there? You've already bought out the property, so something is going to happen. But how dare you pit the residents one against the other? You said that there was competition. You placed competition between neighbors because you offered ungodly amounts of money for someone to sell their home, and if someone wanted to hold out, they couldn't because they knew if they didn't, someone else would. So shame on this whole concept for pitting the people against one another and reducing the people to a simple dollar value. The people of Genesee County, Mundy Township, and the United States of America, as far as that go, are worth more than any multi-billion-dollar industry that comes here and lets residents fight against each other and not look out for their own fellow man.
Okay, thank you very much. You have a question or a comment? Be brief, please.
Just a comment. Leroy Ward, resident out in Mundy Township, and it's all noble, Mr. Kildee, everybody, about getting jobs in here. These union people, they want jobs in this area. However, you've picked the wrong place. This is a residential area. I live less than a half a mile, and many others over here, within that area, that we don't want a mega site with silicone chips or batteries or whatever, we don't even know what, it's going to be, in our backyard, there's going to be pollution, air, water, noise, traffic. We just don't want it. Nobody asked us. This has all been secretive for 3 years now, and now we're trying to be transparent, okay? And that's good. We're finally at this point, but we're doing it because we lost SanDisk, okay? They're not coming in, but now they're doubling down. The state of Michigan is doubling down on the residents when they never asked our input to begin with.
Let me ask you this. Where should this site go in Genesee County?
It needs to go, okay, Saline. They're not happy down there either, but they got it.
Where should it go in Genesee County?
Genesee County, it needs to go in a area that's not within a half a mile or 2 miles within huge residential areas. That's where it needs to go.
Are there sites available like that?
I'm not sure, but we got, and we need to do an environmental impact study. Nothing's been done about that or talked about anything about that. The residents haven't been listened to. You're finally coming to us. Thank you for that, but hear us, please.
Okay. Senator?
Thank you. So, a couple of things that have been brought up here. First, on non-disclosure agreements, 100% agree. Lawmakers should not be signing non-disclosure agreements. I've never signed a non-disclosure agreement, and I think it would be great if we passed a law that lawmakers don't sign non-disclosure agreements. And lawmakers shouldn't be negotiating these deals. That's not the role of the lawmaker, right? That's an executive function. Second, so like when we talk about why places get these development projects, well, let's talk about the places that have gotten projects. New York with Micron, IBM in Ohio, Arizona's gotten them. What they have are large-scale, 1,000-plus acre sites, because that's what's happening now in advanced manufacturing, whether that's chips or other advanced manufacturing. In all of those states, also, when those were put in place, had some sort of incentive. I don't like incentives. I wish we didn't have to do incentives, but I know if we don't do incentives, we're never going to get those investments. It's one of those necessary evils in order for us to get those investments, to get part of what the next economy is going to be. So Michigan really has not been a place where any of those have located. And that's because, unlike our neighbors in Ohio and Indiana, New York, we haven't done the pre-work to actually get large-scale 1,000-acre-plus sites together to be able to handle that level of development.
Senator, let me ask you before I move on. He lives in your district, I'm assuming. You listened to what he said. How do you react to what he said? This was done with NDAs. It was done in secret. They wouldn't have learned any of this until such time that SanDisk pulled out in July. Are you sympathetic to his position? He's one of your constituents.
Oh, absolutely. As I said, we shouldn't be signing NDAs. That's why I don't do it.
But you heard them say, you heard Tyler say, we can't do this without them because the companies won't talk with us unless we agree to keep their information confidential. There's another balancing act. How do you balance that?
You have to have the conversations ahead of time, right? You have to have the conversations ahead of time. Now, when I heard about this, and I had coffee hours, I brought it up in coffee hours. We had open discussions in my coffee hours on this topic, and we talked about things like water, what might be targeted as an investment, and that's what I've tried to do in my conversations when constituents go to my coffee hours. And I've had people call, and I've had long conversations where I tell them what I want, what I know, because I want them to be able to have an open conversation.
So you were kept in the dark too. Is that what you're saying? You were kept in the dark too, right? Is that what you were saying just now? NDAs and so on?
Kept in the dark. I mean,
Here, I'm going to ask you the Frank Church question. Go back to Watergate. What did you know and when did you know it?
I knew that they were targeting an investment, and I did not know what company they were targeting.
Sir, stand up. A question or a comment? I got it.
A little of both. I appreciate the speaker on the end's concerns about government seeming to meddle, I guess. But I think we do best when we have economic interests and government work to create a fertile environment. And I think, to her own point, children living at home because they can commute to a job that's relatively close to where you were from, I mean, that is having jobs relatively close to home.
That's part of the American dream, isn't it?
Yeah. So choosing where you live, and yes, I understand that. And from my understanding, these properties were purchased. They weren't like...
This was not eminent domain. Homeowners were approached, we'd like to buy your home. The market value, hypothetically, is $300,000, and we'll give you well above that. So it was lucrative to them, right? Isn't that how it went down?
And I understand it's always concerning to see your community change, and I'm pretty sure most of the Flint residents feel the same way when the economic engine of the county and the state, to some extent, was ripped out of it. So seeing diversity in manufacturing would be good for, me, my family, people around me. And yeah, I do think there should be transparency towards these sort of deals, and I think that it would, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to have bidding wars or lowest common, denominator between states. But I think, until that's solved at a federal level, I'm not sure you're going to be able to stop it, unless you want us to suffer the consequences. And I personally like the idea of transparency, but I know that the Mackinac Center advocates privacy of donors. So isn't that kind of against the ideal of transparency?
You want to take that, James?
So specifically the question, so I want to help answer.
I don't like the idea of the state having private deals with business, but you say that as someone that works for an institution that doesn't disclose their donors, right?
We disclose every single dollar that we get from the government, and it is not any. So there's privacy. Privacy is for individuals. Transparency is for government. You, as a taxpayer, deserve to know who's spending your money and where it's going. Other people don't deserve to know how you spend your money.
But the businesses are asking for the NDA. They're private. So
Yeah,
if they're asking for the NDA, it's kind of the same as the Mackinac Center not disclosing their donors and their interests.
We don't ask private people to say how they're spending their money. These are private organizations asking for your taxpayer money. That's inappropriate. This is the public's business. There is a huge difference between the public business and private.
He's
and
acknowledging your point. Let me ask you this. You want to see a company like SanDisk come in, is that correct?
I want to see a business be held accountable and invest in the community. Yes, I think they should have to pay their fair share of taxes like everyone else. I think if they fall short of those goals that are agreed upon, there should be repercussions. But I also think we should all have a fair shot at the American dream, and that's, building some sort of industry that can partner with Kettering, U of M Flint, Lansing, Ann Arbor, and developing some sort of economic ecosystem between public and private.
Where should it go in Genesee County?
I think that if people have sold their land fairly and they've consented to it, I think any place is acceptable as long as it meets the regulation that it's supposed to. There should be environmental impact studies. There should be input from the community, but it's not my private property. It's not your private property. It was sold.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. This question came up earlier. Congressman and Senator, when we were with the students, I asked you this, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, but since other sites like this, maybe James, you can weigh in on this as well. Since other sites have been built in other states, we're behind in Michigan. Are there sites you can point to and say, go to West Overshoe, whatever state, and there is a peaceful coexistence of a big plant with thousands of jobs just developed? They've been a year, 2 years, 3 years in operation, and people live across the road, or they live a half mile away, and they're okay with it. Can you point to any of those and tell us all where those are located?
If I could just jump in on it.
I'll let you.
No, he's got a point. Let
a specific answer to my question.
I will. But this gets to the nub of the question. And the gentleman over here, I agree with him. We all want the jobs. The jobs are going somewhere, or they're not coming here. And so the answer to the question, I had a friend of mine who was the mayor of West Point, Georgia, for example, put together a group of incentives, was able to land a car factory, went from being the mayor to being their member of Congress, happens to be a Republican, good buddy of mine. There are plenty of examples of communities that have manufacturing facilities in proximity to neighbors because their families are working there. You want to, like, where does the advantage, where does the benefit come? Where does the peaceful coexistence come? It comes when you bank enough money to have a decent place to live, have a tax base that allows you to have decent parks and roads and water systems, good schools. You have a little bit of money you can set aside for your retirement. You can take a vacation once in a while, and you can give your kids that same opportunity. That's where the peaceful coexistence comes in.
But can you point to a community?
I just told you, West Point, Georgia.
Okay. James, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah, because, I mean, you guys have given me a lot to work with on here, because I do agree with you that it is not about...
Say that again, you agree?
I agree with a lot of what he
We're
says.
done here, folks.
As most of you should, too. He makes some sensible points, and one of the things I want to dwell on that he said is that it shouldn't be about these binary things between, right and wrong, but rather it should be about what's effective and what is ineffective. So I want to tell you something that you guys probably haven't heard about these big deals. They don't work. I brought my study here, which is reviews all the major deals that have been done in the state of Michigan from 2000 to 2020, what was promised and what was actually delivered. And I found that companies that say that they're going to create 100 jobs in Michigan create 9 maybe. That they just don't deliver on their promises. And that's not just for the state of Michigan. That's nationwide. One of the biggest deals that was ever made for taxpayer dollars was with the state of Washington and Boeing. After Washington made that deal, they lost Boeing jobs. Here in Michigan, we've given the auto industry, or we've authorized for the auto industry, over $15 billion of taxpayer money. And we're at half of the auto jobs we had in 2000. The idea that that states can subsidize that there is the jobs of the future that is waiting, and they're just asking for you to bid on them isn't what's happening. But let me tell you where jobs are coming. Most people work for companies you have never heard of. The state of Michigan creates and loses over 800,000 jobs a year. You're not going to compete with that by spending billions of dollars chasing 2,000 jobs that don't deliver on that premise. What matters, again, Michigan is not going to buy its way to the future, but if lawmakers still want to try, there are better ways of doing it, and we should be trying to work with each other to get out of this business where we're trying to write the biggest checks to attract these projects. But I did want to say on top of that, there's a way out. It's an interstate compact to eliminate corporate welfare. We agree with our neighbors to stop. It's been introduced in Michigan and in other places in the past. We can work on this so that we do not compete over who's meditating the hardest, but who's responding to crime, who's building the best parks, who's running the best transit systems.
I am going to come back to that point, MEDC and SOAR funds. We've seen action in recent days and weeks down in Lansing. Yes, sir. Comment or question?
A comment, really. My name is Cody, and I'm in Mundy Township. I live in Mundy Township. And I've had a bitter taste in my mouth about this because it seems like we've always had the cart before the horse. There's a huge swath of land now that's just blank and empty, and we have no idea what we're doing. Nobody has a clue. Could be 10,000 jobs. Let's shout that out, and if we shout it out loud enough, it'll come true. And just as he said, and the word I keep hearing is inevitable, inevitable. Something's going to go there. Well, I'll tell you what we can do. We can put a park there now, because we got a big spot. Are we going to put homes back there? Boy, that'd be stupid. But again, it's taxpayer money. Taxpayer money. And I am a taxpayer. And I pay taxes in Mundy Township. And that's my money. And Flint, that's your money too, going to Mundy Township to wipe out a bunch of area.
So you think it is inevitable that a plant will go in there? They say it's the best site available in America.
No matter what. And this is all nice and wonderful. This is all nice and wonderful. Appreciate you guys coming out here, coming down from Lansing and wherever you come down from, Mr. Kildee. And thank you. I appreciate you coming down. But what I hear is it's inevitable, and you're going to do what you want to do anyway.
Thank you, sir. Do you have your hand up right here? Stand up, please. Go ahead.
Mr. Kirchen, I'd like to know how many people in this room trust your government, local or state.
Show of hands.
Does anybody recall that we were inches away a few years ago from allowing a communist Chinese company to do the exact same thing up in Green Township behind their backs. Non-disclosure agreements is terrible, and they snuck this through the residents. Mr. Kildee, you live 3 miles from here, but your backyard doesn't back up to this property. They paid these residents probably 3 times what their homes were worth, cleared their mortgages, allowed them to purchase new homes mortgage-free on our tax dollars, only to have this fall through. No one in here, I don't think, is debating whether or not we should have this in our state. We need to be competitive, but not on our farmland. Why don't you use the land that was already ruined and developed and flattened?
Okay, that's a good point. Well, let me address that, because that came up this afternoon. A lot of people have said, why not Buick City? Why not that site?
Buick City's 413 acres, and the sites that are in demand are over 1,000 acres. I wish I could stretch Buick City and make it fit. I have been the biggest advocate for getting redevelopment in Buick City, but I find it interesting that when the development that did fit in Buick City was being debated and contemplated, 3 blocks from where I grew up, 3 blocks from where I grew up, where people live right now, I didn't hear the uproar that it shouldn't be near those neighbors.
How about the Chinese companies being allowed to?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I got to tell you, when I was in Congress and even still now, these need to. I agree. Not a good idea. We need have. Well, let me answer your question. 100%. That's why this idea that we can come into this room, and we didn't quite do it this way, but put everybody on one side of the room and everybody on the other side of the room and decide that one side is good and the other is evil, that one side is right and the other is wrong, misses the mark by a million miles. We got a problem, folks. We don't have enough jobs in our community. We have a problem here, too, that we need to make sure we're thinking about and listening to the residents in the affected areas to determine whether or not there is a way to move forward that meets their needs. And if there's not, that's a challenge. But the thing we can't say is that, yes, we need the jobs in someone else's neighborhood. We've got to come to a conclusion that we need to do this somehow.
Yes, sir. Question or comment?
A little of both. I've traveled all over this country since 1989. We went to Saturn. They got with those people. They preserved the things in those areas that those people wanted preserved. I think what's happened, I've been a lifelong resident. I was born on the east side in 1966. I have a business in Mundy Township. What has happened is through the years we have done it wrong, rather. It was Berlin and Faro. The Brown site where they finally built something at V8, right? GM came back, they made it right. Buick City is finally, 20-some years later after they closed it down. I think the thing is they don't trust the government because they've always let them down. Rather, it was at the beginning or when it was all where they couldn't do nothing and the business left. I think that's what we're saying here, is that they're open to having it, maybe not in their neighborhood. I understand your point. As a business owner, I would like to see it. I employ about 70 people in Mundy Township. So I would like to see it would benefit our company. But we got to do a better job up front, venting and meeting expectations of the community first, then make the deal. I think what we're all saying is the deal was done. They didn't really get a say. Sure, they gave them above market value. What are they going to do at that point? Nobody's going to sell it to them for market value or less. So I think...
So you're saying it was imposed on the people?
It was imposed on the people, and I think throughout the state of Michigan, rather it was Blanchard all the way up to Whitmer. We have not done a good job of bringing it transparent and working together. And I agree with you, it's not an evil good. If you're a business owner, you say, let's bring it. If you're a resident, you say, no. But if that resident owned a business, they would say, bring it. And if I own their house, I would say, no.
I'm getting dizzy.
So my point is, we need better cooperation up front. We need to get a community panel together with government, with businesses in the area as well, and then bring these people in. And there shouldn't be an NDA. Another site in Virginia that we've spent 3 years on, it's a Microsoft facility. They've got over 1,000 acres there. They've got 10 buildings on the site. They've got 15-year agreements where people come in, they monitor the water, they monitor the dirt, they make sure that the site is up to the standards. There's things we can do that we haven't done before in this state to make it acceptable.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come
Jim,
over to the lady in front here. As I do that, let me just pose a quick question. All of this and the other sites in the state have now caused lawmakers to introduce legislation. They want to abolish the MEDC. They could have the votes in the legislature, although Governor Whitmer has said she'll veto it. So that would be dead on arrival for her. But we did see, and Senator, you had to vote on this, the SOAR funds, the strategic outreach funds, were not funded in the new budget. And you voted for that budget, correct? Was that difficult for you? Can you address that, please?
Yeah, so part of the new budget lapsed additional dollars going into SOAR. So there are dollars in SOAR right now, but we're not putting additional dollars in there, and I think there's enough money in there. I think we have other priorities that we wanted to address. But I want to circle back to a few points that have been made. Absolutely correct. Most jobs are not, like we talk about any particular state, most jobs aren't on these large, or aren't these large employers. But these large employers really contribute to an ecosystem that supports all those jobs. So when we think, you know, Genesee County, we have the auto industry right now, right? That has been for my entire life and many lives before me, the lifeblood of Genesee County's economy. But it's not just GM that employs people. We have Creative Foam, we have Magna Electronics, we have Lear, we have all these other employers that spin off from these keystone investments. And when we look at something like semiconductors, that's going to be similar. So we look at Midland Saginaw, where they have Hemlock Semiconductor, and they make that really high-grade silicon. And we look at, if we have a semiconductor manufacturer in Genesee County, there's about 2 steps between what Hemlock Semiconductor produces and what goes into these chips. That's opportunity for additional businesses that we can have in a Buick City or other brownfields that we have. That provides the demand that allows us to get those redevelopments to happen.
Okay, Joanne?
Yes, thank you. I have behind me an aerial view of Hemlock Semiconductor chip plant versus the Mundy Township proposed mega site. It's hard to see, but approximately under 700 acres is associated with Hemlock. This is an industry that was started sometime in the 60s. There are no residential areas within almost a 5-mile radius. Okay. Okay, let me rephrase that. There are no densely occupied residential areas. There is not a school located around Hemlock. Mundy Township, dense residential substation. Moorish Elementary, dense residential. Within stone's throw, if you were like Jared Goff, you could hit the semiconductor plant if you lived across the street. There's just a simple concept, and like many residents, we don't need to be chastised as to why we weren't at some other discussion when there was some other crisis occurring in Flint. What we are talking about is not we're trying to say you're evil and we're good. What we're trying to say is you didn't represent us. Our elected officials didn't represent us. And not only am I a resident of Mundy Township, I'm a business owner. So how about every one of you take $1,000 of your hard-earned money and give it to me so that I can expand my business in Mundy Township. That's what this mega site is. We do want jobs, but I don't have to want to work to pay for my business, to pay for things in the community, to contribute to charities, and then also to contribute to a for-profit business. There is no need for a for-profit business to take everyone's hard-earned tax dollars in order to grow. And when we say, oh, everyone needs a 1,000-acre site, no, they don't. Hemlock has been in operation for over 40 years with this site under 700 acres. And when we talk about what's happening in the 1,000 acres, oh, 10,000 jobs, that doesn't occur tomorrow. That maybe occurs over 20 years. And these companies all want a 50-year tax abatement for being there. So we might say we don't have the tax base, but we're certainly not going to get it from a company that's being enticed to come here.
Okay, thank you. Stand up, please. Question or comment?
Question.
Okay.
It's going to take all right, I'm going to set up context very briefly.
to the point.
My name is Marjorie Steele. I am the founder and executive director of the Economic Development Responsibility Alliance of Michigan. I'm actually from Mecosta County. I have a question for Mr. Kildee. I would like to hear Joanne's response to this as well. So this is in reference to your discussing the next generations and, the fact that they don't want to move out of the area, for jobs. So, brief setup, as far as I understand it, our ancestors managed to survive hundreds of millennia without jobs, but every single one of us in this room can't survive more than 3 days without water. These are notoriously water destroyers. I'm saying that we can't live without water, is what I'm saying.
They know about water in Flint.
Right, yeah, folks in Flint know a little bit something about water, right? So these semiconductor plants are notoriously water hogs. It's funny, you mentioned plants in Arizona. So I believe the largest semiconductor plant in Arizona was built about 5 years ago. Rest of World did a great story on it. The reporting, now that it's been established, has been that water around the area has been desertified, has been contaminated. Interestingly enough, the plant seems to be primarily staffed with Taiwanese migrants on H-1B visas, which is another subject.
Okay,
But
let's stick here.
So winding it down to my question is, what assurances have been put in place with this project or with these types of deals to ensure that our local water and Flint residents' local water is protected?
Good question.
The assurances come in the form of high standards that are strictly enforced. And this is where this idea that we can't have a manufacturing base and also have stricter water standards that are enforced, I don't think that that's a choice that we should have to make. When I was in public office, which I haven't been now for the last 10 months, there wasn't another person that I know of in Congress that fought harder for higher standards and more enforcement. There are some that might argue we need less regulation. Some people, perhaps, who oppose this particular development would say we also need less regulation. My view is no. We can actually grow jobs and not have to tell ourselves that we have to settle for lower standards when it comes to air and water.
Very, very brief follow-up question. I very much appreciate that, Mr. Kildee. I really do, that you don't support dismantling environmental regulations. Very brief follow-up. Would you, and this is also to Mr. Cherry, would you support ensuring that this project has a full environmental impact study, not assessment, study performed before shovels go in the ground? Yes or no?
100%.
Yes.
I can say that I was still working during the Flint water crisis. And then afterward, Dan, you tried to sell me on how many stories I needed to do on PFAS. Remember those? Turn your mic on.
Yes,
Remember
that's
those?
right. Yeah.
So you and I have always had a great working relationship
Yeah.
with you in public office. And when I was working as a reporter, you were one of my go-to guys when I was checking out information. Is this legit or is it off track? And I just want to say he was always spot on with where he stood, and his information was always spot on. I just want to say that publicly.
Thank you, Jim.
And I'm not just saying that because you're here tonight. Did I see some hands over here and over here? Let me get to this side and I'll come back. I'll be back, I promise. Where was the hand right here? Stand up, please.
Hello, I am sympathetic to the Mundy Township residents, but I have been in a community that have their property been taken by eminent domain for market value. So,
where?
Flint.
What part of Flint and for what project?
The highways, all of the.
You mean the freeways?
Yeah.
That was decades ago.
Yeah, but still.
Okay. So how's that relevant to today?
It's relevant because with progress and with economic success comes sacrifice.
Okay.
And it's relevant.
Okay.
And I think that the people who gave up their homes, or who sold their homes, definitely profited much more so than the people in the community of Flint did when they were forced to give up theirs for progress. Okay. I would also like to say that when you say that companies pitted people against each other, you can't give your anger away to someone else. People pit each other against each other, not companies. People choose to fight and argue. The companies did not make them do that. And I would also like to say that I too want to see economic progress. I have a son who's looking to get into the construction field. I myself am in the IBEW. I would like to see unions expand. I've been in a union now for 3 years. It's the best thing that ever happened to me after working non-union since I was 13 years old. And there is a lot more freedoms and a lot more safety measures and a lot more protections that we have. And I would like to see more union jobs created. I would like to see more women be able to join the union, which we're just now really starting to get into the construction field in higher numbers.
Let me ask you this. If a plant like this is built, should they be union jobs?
Oh, most definitely.
Union trade jobs.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And it wouldn't be bad if they didn't actually have unions in place within the facility to cover the workers that were there as well.
Senator, Congressman, could that be written into any agreement?
Pardon me?
Could that be written into any agreement that the jobs have to be in a union?
Well,
for
I got to tell you,
construction
I
and
don't think you're going to
manufacturing?
find broad agreement among everybody on this particular question, but I would guess. When I was in Congress, for any money that came from the federal government, and I know we're not going to agree on this one, I would, for the construction phase, require minimally prevailing wage, which the Mackinac Center I know does oppose, and also project labor agreements. Why? You get the job done right, on time, with good wages that go into your community.
I just want to point out, this is a project that didn't happen. There are no union jobs at this facility from a deal that just fell through. No one benefits from that. So
you're saying we need to build something?
I'm saying that you should let the emergent market forces work. People sold their property. There are rules for what can get developed on this. Let's let people figure out how to best serve each other's wants and needs around the rules that we have at this system, instead of trying to spend hundreds of millions of dollars chasing projects that don't materialize.
Okay, question, comment?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. So I have a couple of quick questions. The first one I'd like to ask the gentleman from the Mackinac Center. When you went to the meeting in front of the State Oversight Committee, I believe there was a number of actual jobs that were brought out and asked how many were actually going to come to that proposed location. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 4 different building sites on one area, and it was, what, 170 per building, if that. But I could be wrong, so I'll ask you to confirm that. But I think the bigger question, everybody knows we do need jobs. We need sustainable jobs, not jobs that are going to be here today for tomorrow. And what I mean by that is not the quick fix jobs, because 10 years down the road, there's no say that the chips will be obsolete and we will be left with a factory that is going to be obsolete, desolate, and left with another brownfield like much what has happened in the city of Flint areas. So my question to you is, maybe we're going about this the wrong way, and maybe we should be looking at what is it that we actually do need in Genesee County. And I bring this up because I am a Mundy Township resident, and it's been brought to my attention several times. We have not one lick of senior housing available in Mundy Township. Not one lick. Hold on, I'm not done. And then another question I brought up too is, what if we could bring something here that could bring substantial food growth to our area, not just for next week, next year, 10 years down the road, but sustainably sustain our whole community and possibly even half of our state for the next 100 years. So I think maybe we're going about this the wrong way, and maybe we need to look at what does our county, what does our city actually need? We need sustainable growth, not growth that's going to be here today and gone tomorrow.
Well, I take the point, but I do think at some point in time, a judgment has to be made where, if there's going to be investment, and I totally understand that we have a philosophical agreement, or disagreement, I should say, over whether there's a role for government in creating incentives to bring jobs to communities that need them. We can have that argument. That's a fair argument, honestly, and it's reasonable. People can come to different conclusions on that. But I actually think that chip manufacturing, moving into renewable energy sources, moving into battery production, I don't think we can take the position that because in some moment, at some time, that technology might be obsolete, that we shouldn't do anything to get those jobs. Because going back to the earlier point about the Stone Age, at some point in time, every technology becomes obsolete and replaced with something else. If the people back in 1910, 1908 had taken the position that this car thing isn't really going to last, we would never have had that growth here, manufacturing. Now, the question is whether the government should play a role in that, and that's a legitimate debate. I get that. But if we're playing by the rules of the game, and the rules of the game are that we're competing with our folks, we want to be able to win the future. The technologies of the future, not the technologies of the past, are where we would want, I think, plant the flag. And that's kind of where I think we sit. But on your point about food production, fantastic point. One of the advantages we have is access to raw water here, which is very important in food production. And we have the second richest agricultural mix in the state of Michigan, next to California, which obviously is huge. But the diversity of crops in Michigan begs for us to make an investment in food processing, not just in production and distribution, but actually that processing piece of it, really important piece. And I'm totally on board with moving in that direction as well.
Former Senator Dan, you know we just destroyed a 1,000-acre farm.
So I do want to address the points you make and one of the points that you raised, which is there is a philosophical question about the government's role in the economy, but there's a practical one too. And I want to tell you about the track record that our government has had trying to foster jobs in the state of Michigan. So the SOAR fund that we're talking about that was involved in this deal, it's proposed 9 deals. One of those fell through before it even happened. 2 of them have been canceled. 2 of them have been reduced, and no jobs have been created at the other 4. It promised 14,779 jobs. It pledged $1.4 billion of taxpayer money to do this. It spent $720 million of your taxpayer money, and it has produced, to date, 0 jobs. Okay, that's the track record. We shouldn't assume that the evidence that our government is trying to foster an industry is effective use of taxpayer dollars or effective use of creating jobs. Now, I did look at, again, to go back to this, we're creating jobs in the state of Michigan. People are creating jobs here in Flint. We're helping an entrepreneurial group trying to help families get their own businesses off the ground. That is happening. It's happening without press releases, without political dollars. More of that needs to happen. So again, the state of Michigan creates and loses over 800,000 jobs every single year. Even if all of the jobs that our lawmakers promised from these deals would happen, it would be able to replace 0.2% of all the jobs that get lost in the normal turnover of the economy. We have to rely upon the private sectors emerging from the emerging from the rules and from the interactions that we have with each other to replace the jobs that are getting lost. That's what's effective. That's the only thing that is effective. $720 million for 0 jobs is a waste of our taxpayer money.
Here's a question that I have. When I looked into this, SanDisk was free to go in July. No signed contract, only a letter of intent. And the deal was for 20 years or 50 years. Were there any bankruptcy provisions for SanDisk that if the chip industry went south, went sideways, and they couldn't sustain the business and they wanted to shut it down? The question earlier was, we're going to just see another empty factory building. What safeguards were built into that? Because a letter of intent that they could just walk away seemed pretty thin to me as I researched this. Was it too thin? Was that a lesson learned here?
Well, I think, stepping back, there was no formal deal that came before any, like the state legislature or anything like that.
Right. So I guess what I'm asking is that a mistake?
Well, if there were going to be actual dollars put by the state towards something, that all those things would need to be presented to us. But since they never got to that stage, that type of agreement was never presented to us.
Do you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, I agree with the premise that we should have clawback provisions in many of these deals. When I was a county commissioner, I went after that all the time when we have these industrial facility exemptions, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
They're doing that with Goshen, by the way.
Right.
Over by Big Rapids.
This is my point about not painting this as such a binary choice, because my belief is we got to do all this stuff a lot better than what we've been doing. Let's not dance around that. But that doesn't mean we unilaterally disarm. And this is where I think we do disagree philosophically, that I believe that communities that have experienced chronic economic dislocation should go to the front of the line when it comes to getting help, because it's not an even playing field, folks. It's not an even playing field because our tax base is eroded to a point where many of the essential elements in a civil society are not guaranteed to every resident. And it's very hard to compete without growing your tax base to improve public services. So I agree with a lot of the criticism and complaint. We need to do better at this, but that doesn't mean we don't do it. We actually need to be better at it and be more transparent about it. It's one of the reasons I don't believe in non-disclosure agreements.
And the gentleman right next to you says we shouldn't be doing it.
No. So I think he makes an interesting point, because I would be far more sympathetic if our business subsidy programs were geared towards high unemployment areas. There's actually some economists who are like, look, this is the only way that these things could possibly be effective. No program I have ever seen in the state of Michigan, around the country, has done that. And to the point about bankruptcies, if there the deal that every company gets with for CHIPS money from the federal government, do they have bankruptcy protections for taxpayers? Who knows, because we can't be told. Those are private confidential documents.
I think there's an area of agreement here that we ought to just take a point of. I agree with you that it ought not be a situation where these incentives are universally available to every community. They ought to be targeted for metropolitan areas that have experienced chronic job loss over a long period of time. every time I had a chance to write legislation for economic development incentives, I always wrote them in a way that targeted those communities that have been facing the disproportionate job loss, and not put ourselves in a position where these incentives, like opportunity zones, for example, by the way, that can be used in very high wealth areas that are doing just fine, but happen to have one census tract that has, really rough data. It should be these incentives should be reserved to broad regional communities, counties like Genesee County.
All right, I just want to make one point here. I don't want to go too far away from what we're discussing here tonight, but U.S. government kicked in $1.75 billion in North Carolina for a plant that did get built. Manufacturer of silicon carbide materials used in cars, phones, and other technology called Wolfspeed. You familiar with this? Wolfspeed, built with this amount of federal financial support as well as a lot more private borrowing to create the John Palmer Manufacturing Center in Siler, North Carolina. The facility was completed, but in June of this year, Wolfspeed filed for bankruptcy, and it's just emerging. The future is uncertain. So is that something that needs to be, as we move forward here, whatever company is considered, there are safeguards, $1.75 billion in federal money given to this company, and now they had to go into Chapter 11 restructuring.
Okay, so I love anecdotes. I think this is probably typical of what is going on. However, even when I did my front page failure studies, there were a couple of companies that exceeded expectations. They're not always going to fail to produce the things that they said. We're giving out a lot of money. Some of these projects would happen, but one of the facilities that overproduced was an Amazon distribution system, and we have more than a dozen of those things that didn't get special taxpayer dollars. So when our lawmakers say that we have to make these deals, otherwise we're going to lose out on jobs, you should be a little more skeptical, because most of the deals fail, and even the deals that do receive special assistance could have happened without it. Now, again, let's be a little humble about what we can and can't accomplish, and just recognize that the basics are the things that matter. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of basics that we're working on in the state of Michigan. We need to fix our roads faster than they fall apart. The most recent deal, or most recent budget deal, might get us that way. And I think that's going to matter more for jobs in the state of Michigan than whether our lawmakers respond to the right companies. Now, I do want to put one last thing, is that companies love the idea that states have to bid on their projects. They get more free cash from their taxpayers. This is not the appropriate way to compete. Most of the time, you don't really know what's determining their businesses. Lee Iacocca, of all people, said that he would get fake offers from states just to try and get more money from the state that he already chose. That's not a good way of doing business, and that's not a good way of setting policy for Michigan or for any other state.
Okay, over on this side. Question, comment?
Yes, I'd just like to clarify something about the Kia, Georgia, that was referenced as being akin to what we're talking about here. Yes, Kia, Georgia has a large manufacturing plant in West Point, Georgia, which is described as a mega site, and located on 2,200-acre property adjacent to a city, but it is not in the middle of a residential neighborhood, as the Mundy Township location is. Also, there was no environmental impact in that location, and we've already had that happen in Mundy Township. They've destroyed a wetland and some other, problematic destruction that's happened. And as far as, the situation where, yes, people did get money, like they got a lot of money for their land, but it isn't the money people that for the land that are really the ones that are going to suffer. It's the people who are left behind that are being abused by this.
Joanne, did you have anything else you wanted to say? Somebody thought you were not getting your due up here on the stage. No? Okay. Another comment, question? Okay, I'll come back to you.
Hi.
Hi.
This is un-American, really, altogether, this project, because the money is basically being siphoned against the will of the people. They don't get to vote on this. As a matter of fact, it's constitutionally, it's not, they don't have the consent of the Constitution either. They're supposed to vote 2/3 supermajority in both chambers before they take public funds for private business. And so it's the non-government organizations are going rogue with our money for their pet projects, and we don't have a say here. And I live across the street from the mega site. I don't get to sell my house for 2-3 times the value. I live on the corner. The traffic is terrible. I can't imagine what it's going to be like if they put a factory there. Nobody wants to buy my house. Nobody wants to live across the street from a semiconductor plant, especially on the corner. So this is totally unfair to us. It's like, okay, economic development in the name of, okay, step on the residents' heads for this. What is going to happen if the company goes bankrupt? Are we going to get our money back? Like, what, $260 million? And then the tax incentive of the homes that they've destroyed around the 2 square mile parameter, we're losing money in the township already. So this is not this is not for public gain at all. And this is a cart before the horse. It's totally unfair. Everything about this is corrupt and fraudulent. So, thank you.
Let me ask this question, kind of related to that. The residents who live near the site, but their homes are not in the site, they live near it. If this is developed, and with all this tax money that is being spent, should they also be bought out so they can have the choice to leave and not have to live right across the road? Is that viable, Senator?
Yeah, so I'll address that. So, this is one of the questions that I asked when the idea of this project came to my attention. And what was presented to me is when you look at other semiconductor fabrication facilities, California, et cetera, the areas surrounding those facilities, the values skyrocket. So, I mean, from my perspective, thank God we have the Headley Amendment, right? Because that is what we have constitutionally in place to protect people's, so their taxes don't go through the roof when the property values go up. But every place you see these large-scale developments, there's increases in property value. So if...
So wait a minute, let me just stop you right there. So are you saying that if a site goes in, the people who live nearby are a half mile away, and that map that we showed in the video, their property values are going to go up? That's what you're saying?
That's the expectation, yeah.
Is that that's what you're saying? Okay. Let's see the hands of people who believe that. I don't mean to be rude, but don't you agree that's a tough sell?
No, because you're bringing in 10,000 jobs to a community of 400,000 people. When you have a healthy economy, your property values increase because people are wanting to move there.
Except there isn't.
I am a.
I was just going to make a comment of TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, largest, is building their plants in Arizona. Out in the middle of the desert, the only property value that's going to go up is for the gophers and prairie dogs that are living there. There is not a residential site around. It is, I would ask to actually see the citations and documented property sales of homes where the tax value has gone up when there is some type of mega site development. And again, the number of jobs is now between 2,000 on Monday to 10,000 on Thursday at 8:34 p.m. So it's all over the map, and there's not a documented job count that is going to come from this. And it would be interesting to note how many of the people who were bought out for their homes that lived along Linden Road or Elms, How many of those people moved into those subdivisions right across the street from the mega site? It would be curious to know that. They all moved out, jobs or no jobs.
Question or comment?
Comment. I'm third generation union worker and Flintstone. I worked at Flint Assembly or associated with Flint Assembly for 40 years. Nobody in Westgate's, the subdivision right across the street, their property value has not increased. Those homes were fabulous when I was a kid. They're not now. Flint Assembly employs about 3,000 people, 1,000 per shift, mainly because we have robotic truck lifts, tuggers. At Delphi and Saginaw, rails brought parts to you and rails took them back. Robots put windshields in now. So the idea that a mega site is going to employ that many people is BS. And the idea that we're supposed to follow the rules is BS, because nobody involved in the Mundy Township with the overlays and the lies and the I don't knows and the it's not me, it's somebody else you got to talk to. I emailed your office. I tried to call you. There was nobody. The only one office was I able to talk to, and that was Dan Kilde's. And that was years ago when I first found out. Now, our board has a new president because we voted them out because they lied and they deceived and they signed NDAs. So the rules don't work. The environmental impact studies were never done. I know a gentleman in the back that as well is messed up because he didn't do it right. And over 90% of Mundy Township is well water, including mine. My grandchildren will not be at my house with a poison well.
Any response? I'm going over here. Any quick response? Nope. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just add one piece. Referencing truck and bus, the site is 3 times the size of truck and bus. So 3 times 3,000 is 9,000. Yeah.
Okay, over on this side, please. We have a student who is with us this afternoon, and she has a question tonight.
I actually did ask this question earlier in the day when you were doing questions around the campus. But I feel like it was important enough to repeat in this town hall ask questionnaire. Yep. You had mentioned previously that one of the big draws of the Flint area, and especially Genesee County, was the fact that GM had such a strong economic foothold in Flint. And at least during that questionnaire, you didn't necessarily bring up the repercussions that brought about. And you talked about how this mega complex is supposed to bring those jobs back. And I guess I just wanted to ask again, is there anything in place to prevent something like GM pulling out from happening again? Is there anything that could prevent the mass loss of jobs that you promised would be brought into the area?
In other words, if this comes in and 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, they leave, we're stuck again.
Exactly. That's my biggest concern.
So is there a safety net that can be put in place, or some money put into the bank so if they do leave early, that fund is set aside for that as insurance? Is that a good way to describe it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Answer?
Yeah, I just think in terms of General Motors, I may have either misspoke or was misunderstood. I don't want to argue that General Motors' current presence is our greatest strength. It once was, that's for sure. And I think the biggest challenge that we've had here locally for many, many decades is that we were so rooted in one single industry and one single company that we were at far greater risk of job loss as a result of changes in the economy than we would be if our manufacturing base was spread across multiple sectors. And it's one of the reasons, completely understanding a legitimate debate about where you place it, whether you subsidize it, et cetera. But I don't think there should be any debate that our attention when it comes to economic development should certainly be to support job growth in the auto sector, but more so to support growth in other sectors of manufacturing so that we're not back in the same boat we were in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where when the American auto industry began to lose market share, Flint, Michigan, and the people surrounding Flint suffered the greatest loss. Having a more diverse economy means trying to do what we can to bring jobs in other aspects of the economy, growth aspects of the economy, where there is high demand, and it's not so tied to that single industry.
Okay, over on this side, we have a comment.
Yeah, I find the mega site just part of the American greed, and I find that the stewards of our county often just look to bring things in instead of keeping the things that we already have here secure. For example, Bishop Airport, before they remodeled, American Eagle, which is a sister part of American Airlines, had a maintenance base here. Those were great jobs. Those were skilled jobs. Those were union jobs. When Bishop remodeled, whatever happened in the county with our leadership, guess what? American Eagle packed up, and there was a lot of jobs lost. And then the other thing is, every time I drive by the Genesee Valley Mall, I see this, it was a mall already established. Somebody up on the decision-making board said, yeah, why don't you build Burlington out? And then guess what? Now we have an empty mall. So with this mega site, we're just knocking down trees, knocking down houses, and we're just going to, maybe a company's going to come in, and if you guys want to guarantee for a company to stay and promise you something, good luck. And then you're just going to look at destruction left behind.
Any response? I got to go to the other side. Meet me halfway. It's going to take me a while. Come on over, you two. Come on. Yes, sir. Comment or question?
Comment. I got it. Okay. So I have read up on this, and I don't know what the current position of the people of Mundy Township is. Either Mundy Township or Swears Creek, or the people of that area. I don't know what their current position is concerning this, concerning the mega site. It's a comment. Okay. I would just like to say that I wonder. I think it would be more befitting if there would be some sort of discussion about diversifying the economy, not only in that area but of this entire metro area. I know manufacturing has been here for over 100 years and things like that, but since the auto industry pulled out of the Flint area like they did in a big chunk, I know they're still here a little bit. I think that it should be considered, especially for a site as large as that, to some kind of way reach out to either of the leaders of the 15 public universities in the state, or the leaders of the almost 4,000 colleges here in the United States, to see if they will consider bringing a satellite campus to this area, especially to that site. Okay. That would provide additional college opportunities for our high school graduating seniors in the area. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Question or comment?
Little bit of both. So my name is Tyler Bailey, and first I would like to say I think this is a fantastic opportunity as someone who works in economic development for us to increase what the conversation of what economic development means at the local level, whether Mundy Township, Swartz Creek, City of Flint, Buick City, the regional level at the county, the state level with the senator, or the federal level with our former congressman. When you look at what economic development means as someone who works in the field, you're investing $23 million in Lear. Well, that didn't fix Hamilton Street. It didn't repair the north end. It was a large-scale investment, but it was a bullet point. And how many of those employees live in the town that I live in? I don't know.
Let me ask you this.
Let me ask you to report it.
Let me ask you this. Given your position, are you in favor or against a mega site like this and a big manufacturer coming in?
As a municipal employee, it's not my job to be in favor or against something. It's my job to get them through the process. That being said, I think there is an opportunity to emulate some other best practices we have seen from other post-industrial industries, such as, or municipalities, forgive me, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Charleston, West Virginia, Flint, Michigan, where we have gone door to door to sell historic parks, where we have gone to quinceañeras, we have gone to barbecues, we've gone to churches and backyard cookouts without cameras to garner support from the people that occupy those parks, those churches, those backyards, so they don't have the air of mysticism around them. That's what your local economic development is for. So I think I would feel very enchanted and very hopeful and optimistic, which is a big ask for a giant pessimist like me, to say that this is an opportunity to take this and say, how are we working at a local level so the folks who have questions about what are our tax dollars being used for, how are they being reinvested, and how is it being repopulated into the ecosystem?
Very good point. Thank you, sir. I'm looking at the time. We have about 15 minutes left. Okay, I'm coming. I'm going to go to this gentleman on the left, and then I'll come to you. But we're going to wind it down here, so if you want a voice, we're going to have to wrap it up soon. Yes, sir, I got it. Is this a comment or a question?
Well, it's a bit of a comment.
Go ahead.
I appreciate that somebody's trying. I would like to see somebody in here has a better idea, because you know what? Our economy is failing our kids. I run an apprenticeship here in Flint. I have to turn away 90% of the applicants because we don't have enough jobs to employ those apprentices. Those kids want to be electricians. I have 250 to 300 people apply every year, and our contractors can only employ 25 to 30 of them for free education that has benefits, good wages, and if somebody has a better idea, let's see it.
Thank you, sir. The hand up here. I got it. Comment or question?
It's a question.
Go ahead.
We've heard over and over again in testimony at the Oversight Committee and elsewhere, best site in the country, which I agree, it is a good site because of the location of the railroad and all those things. My question is, why do we have to use corporate private money and taxpayer money to incentivize a billion-dollar company who can afford to come in here and buy and build in that best site in America?
That goes back to the basic point here. If we don't do it, other states are going to eat our lunch, mop the floor with us, right? Isn't that the short answer?
I mean, it is the short answer. I'm glad to hear you say it's a great site. I don't know if it's the best site, honestly, because I wasn't involved in selecting it. All I know is we need jobs in our community, and we need them desperately. And so let's figure out how we're going to do that. The issues around whether public dollars should be used to incentivize economic development is a really good question. But to take that to its natural extension, that would also mean that no public dollars should support Mott Community College. Because Mott Community College is economic development, folks. Mott Community College is economic development. So it really comes down to a question of where do we draw the line. And I get your point about not going directly to private organizations. I get that. That's a philosophical argument. But the government very often is in a position to try to right some past wrongs. And there are a lot of past wrongs that our community has endured here. Economic policy has worked against us for so long. And a lot of that is at the doorstep of the federal and state governments. A lot of our failure is not just the result of bad luck, it's bad policy. And so sort of the way I look at it is that if we have an opportunity to try to balance the scales in our favor, I would argue, and I think we would probably agree, that these incentives ought to be seriously targeted to the most distressed places. And I think the arguments would be a little bit different, maybe even philosophically a little bit different, if that were the case. That's the position I take. I don't know if this is the best site. And I also know that it's probably not possible in Genesee County, given our land mass, to find a place that has the proximity to I-75 US 23, I-69, rail, air, and water, that is also not anywhere near anybody's home. I happen to represent the area near Hemlock Semiconductor. There are neighbors, there are schools in proximity, but one of the things they have that we don't, and the reason they are expanding, is that right there around the industrial facility, they had available land. The fact that what Hemlock Semiconductor was doing so well, and then they were able to get Corning to make a significant investment there, they never would have made the investment there if it hadn't been for the fact that somebody, some time ago, decided to make sure that that land was available for development. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. If you wait until the opportunity occurs to try to assemble the land, the opportunity will go someplace else. And so I agree with a lot of the concerns of the residents, but I think we ought to be able to willing to at least take the position that we got to get our sites ready. If we're going to compete for these big deals, we have to have a site that is ready to go, because time kills all deals, and we can't afford that.
I see a couple of hands in the back.
Can I follow up real quick? Because, oh wait.
Come to you
yes,
second.
we'll
Ma'am,
go with-
stand up, please. I'll hold it. Is this a question or a comment?
Comment. Yes, I want to say I'm a Flintstone, born and raised in Flint. We've been through a lot. But I just want to say to the residents and community here to stick together and don't back down. And do your homework, which you've already started to do. Because we've been through that job card with General Motors. They played the job card. Every time they would come to city council and ask for a 50% tax abatement, and they would come down there and play the job card. Well, give us the tax abatement so y'all can have a job. But they did not follow through on the promises. It was empty promises, and unfortunately, many of our council people fell for it. But we as a community, we've been through certain things, we've learned some lessons, and even if our council had put a provision in these tax abatements that if they close a plant, and trust and believe, every plant that has closed in the last 8 or 9 plants, they all had the tax abatement with them when they left. So if our council people had a little foresight, they may have said, well, if you close the plant before the tax abatement is us, you're going to bring the money back to the community. So I just encourage you to stay together. Don't get relaxed, because we live in some intense time, but we have a reputation in our area as being fighters. So thank you.
I can attest to that. Flint has always had the fight spirit. This may be it. Comment or question?
Thank you.
Comment or
Comment and question.
Okay.
Okay. Representatives Kildee and Cherry, certainly we all know this is, we're targeting the semiconductor industry. That's been very clear. There's no other industry we're seeking. It's the semiconductor industry. Do either of you know the extent of the environmental hazards that a semiconductor industry brings to a community? Do you know the extent? Yes or no, both of you?
Yes, and that's why we have to have strict and well-enforced environmental regulations.
And
yes.
we know Michigan's history on that, right? Yes? No?
Painfully.
Okay. Well, I don't see that changing.
So learn from lessons.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you also tell me how many people in that community have well water?
I just heard from my high school classmate that it's 90%.
Okay, 90% you said? How do you think that will impact the area residents and their well water? And for those of you who want this and don't live around it, your opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Hey, I do want to follow up, because actually your opinion does matter. We already have a lot of policies and laws about land use, and so I just wanted to address the issue of economic development. If you're concerned about the negative externalities, the harms to current residents for these things, and I got to tell you, current policy already reflects some of these things. We do have stringent water use rules, assessments, and rules. I don't know exactly how they apply for this project. I'm not an expert in that, but they exist. We have air pollution rules that try to make sure that they're not spouting out harms for the rest of your community. We have noise and nuisance rules. When they increase, or when traffic increases, they build more lanes. They build soundproof barriers. We can exist in a world with growing jobs. In fact, it's going to allow us to afford a lot more public amenities if we do. So yes, the concerns are all valid. They do apply. You really should know the particulars of the project, and you should be concerned about these particulars when your lawmakers are talking about projects with secret companies. But economic development should be good for all of us too, and there are ways to address a lot of your concerns.
Okay, I want to do this. I want to hold on, Joanne, hold on, Senator, hold on. I'm going to give you each a final say. We got 5 minutes to go. We started by going left to right. We're going to end it with going right to left. Joanne, a quick closing comment, please.
Thank you. Our group has done a tremendous amount of research on the semiconductor chip manufacturing industry. When we talk about an industrial site, it's not going to be the factory that your father or grandfather worked at. You're not going to have hundreds of thousands of people on an assembly line. Do a little research. If you want, look up something on YouTube called Bitcoin Miners. Talks about these data sites. They use 80 million gallons of water a day. We're concerned because we are surrounded by the greatest 5 lakes, and we do need to protect those, and we don't need to take advantage of that water resource. I will say, Michigan belongs to Region 5 of the EPA, and everyone always says, oh, we will follow the most strictest concerns or strictest regulations. Those regulations are not strict, and they're not followed. In fact, EPA only established March 14th of 2023 what they consider safe guidelines for PFAS. PFAS are going to be used in the semiconductor chip manufacturing industry. What happens in a brief synopsis of what occurs? These chemicals are used to create the chips in the wafer manufacturing process. PFAS are used even if they recycle their water and wastewater. Those PFAS are going to be contained in a filtration system. There is nowhere in the nearby area of a landfill that will accept those contaminated filtration processes. There has to be a site where they can go. Is this plant going to build them? Are they going to house them? If something was only established in 2023 as to what safe PFAS levels are in drinking water, that is only 2 years shy. It is not a strict guideline, and in fact, it's a guideline. And if we're concerned that, or if we're being told that all the safety precautions will be taken, let me just say that when they were cutting down all the trees and they violated at least 5 Eagle provisions, if we can't cut down a tree and abide by Eagle guidelines, what's going to happen when we have a plant using 50 million gallons of water contaminated with PFAS?
Senator Cherry, final thoughts?
Thank you, Jim. So, a little bit to respond to the question, you have to have put in place and maintain water treatment requirements, and also not allow discharge into places where you're going to get it into groundwater. And we can put those requirements in place in a development, and we should. But when we're talking about this potential, a potential project in Mundy Township, there's a discussion about a potential interstate compact. 100%. We need a interstate compact with 50 states that prevents this race on economic development.
Coming to a committee near you.
Unfortunately, we don't have it today. right? And so ultimately, we are competing with other states. And we can talk about projects that didn't work, but I think the way to look at it is to look at people who have been successful, states that have been successful. And what did they have? They put in place development-ready sites of 1,000 acres plus, and they do have some form of economic strategy to attract those developments. And so we have a decision. Do we want to try to bring transformational economic projects to our state and our community, or do we not want to bring transformational economic projects to our state and to our community? And in the instance that we do want to bring these jobs, then we have to work through the details of how we do that in a safe and fair way.
Final thoughts?
Guys, thank you for listening to all of this. You've been here for a very long time, and it looks like you're still engaged after an hour and a half of talking about economic development projects and business subsidy policies. All right. So if my message has resonated with you, please check us out at mackinac.org. That's Mackinac with a C, like the island, not the city. But to the point is, like, if you look at the track record of selective subsidy programs, they don't work, they're impractical, they're expensive, unfair, and ineffective. We'd be better off without them. And then to focus, and even without them, focus on the basics. There's a lot of basics to improve everywhere in state policy. And for more on what we can do to fix out the basics, we have a blueprint for public policy in Michigan. Check that out on our site. I think everyone here will find at least something they agree with. So check it out, and feel free to reach out to us or other people and about the good policies that we can accomplish here in Michigan.
Kildee.
Well, first I just want to thank everybody for being here and for engaging in a spirited but I think very civil conversation. People treated one another with respect and dignity. And honestly, issues come and issues go. The place that I used to work in, Washington, D.C., couldn't have a conversation as thoughtful and dignified as this. It would have devolved into something pretty ugly. So I wish I could go back to them and tell them, we don't always agree here, but we treat one another with some dignity and respect, even people who have very serious disagreements with one another. The issues are important, but I want to just say that because I will admit, you know, I've been out of public office now for 10 months. I was in it for a long, long time. I sort of miss these debates. I much prefer them here than back in Washington, D.C. You all did really well tonight. Thank you for that.
Mollahan, thank you very much. On behalf of Bill Ballinger and the lecture series, thank you all for coming out. I hope this was productive in some ways. We're not all going to leave here in agreement. I think we knew that coming in. We tried to air some of the issues, and as I started out by saying tonight, this is the first comprehensive community discussion about this. And in my mind and for my money, it should not be the last. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, Jim, for moderating. We appreciate that. What a truly enlightening evening. Thank you once again to the incredible panelists for diving deep into this very complex topic. We want to let's just all say thank you to them. So thank you for joining us. And to our wonderful audience, thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Your engagement and presence are what make these type of events so helpful and rewarding. If you're a Mott student and are wanting extra credit for being here, please make sure that you sign in with me. So thank you for all the Mott students that joined us tonight as well. Yes, wonderful. Thank you for coming. With that, we officially conclude our event. Appreciate you spending your evening with us. Safe journey home. Thank you all.
If anyone would like more information on semiconductor chips,
Thanks
please
to
take
the
a
audience.
card.
Great questions. Thank you for coming. You guys are all heroes. You made the night in addition to our great panel. Thank you.